Nutrient density. Now, this is a word that we hear thrown around in wellness circles all the time, right? Want to have the most nutrient dense foods. That's great. That's awesome. But in today's video, I want to share a little bit more context as to what that really means. Like, what is nutrient density? Now, we human beings are amazing. We really are. We're the smartest species on the planet. Some might disagree with that. Sometimes I do as well in other areas, but we are amazingly intelligent. But for all of our intelligence, we have some blind spots. And I think that sometimes we have to be very cognizant of our blind spots. And one of our blind spots is when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to really this basic fundamental element of our lives. We tend to have some blind spots. You know, if you look at animals in nature, consider like a cheetah, okay? And the cheetah chases its prey, and when it kills the prey, the first thing that cheetah does is it goes for the most nutrient-dense parts of that animal, whether it be a gazelle or whatever it has taken down. It goes for that very nutrient-rich, like a liver, the heart, the organs, the lungs. It really is drawn intuitively to this highest amount of nutrition that that particular animal offers. Now, you look at what an animal eats. It eats something that is very species appropriate. A cheetah is eating something that is appropriate for the species of a cheetah. You don't see a cheetah sipping on a Coca-Cola. You don't see a cheetah bagging, cramming a bag of Cheetos, right? This is something that we human beings, with our innate intelligence, we've come up with all these processed foods and all these frankenfoods, if you will, that really have never existed in nature. And if you think about what we do in contrast to Mother Nature, if you look at these animals, how they instinctively and how they intuitively eat, and then you juxtapose that with how we eat, we're about quick. We're on the run. We want it now. We want it to taste good. We want it to be convenient. One of my favorite sayings is, we worship at the altar of convenience, but we offer our health as the sacrificial lamb. And I think that our current state of humanity very much personifies that. We're very much about what we can get done. We're all about productivity and output, right? Expending more energy. And then the energy that we're taking in, the nutrition that we're taking in, is a very low quality energy to substantiate and replenish the energy that we're outputting via work, relationships, being a parent, building a business, whatever our stressors are, or whatever requires our energetic outputs, we're getting a very poor input. So the question then becomes, what do we do to make sure that we are getting the most nutrient dense foods on the planet? How can we get the A+ foods in our body, the most high quality foods that are literally going to supercharge our engines? Because if we think about it, we really are what we eat, okay? And so really, I want to go over a few things today that will point us in the right direction of what a good quality, nutrient dense food is, so that we have a better understanding of what this really, really means. The very first thing that we need to understand is that we need to go back to the basics. And back to the basics is eating real food. Whole foods versus processed foods. Okay. Now, we've seen in Mother Nature some really good examples. I just shared one with the cheetah eating a whole food. A gazelle is a whole food. It doesn't have an ingredients label on it. It doesn't have blue 4 or dyes or aspartame or sucralose or any of the other nonsense that finds its way into our foods. It's just a living, breathing, sentient animal that is competing in the circle and the cycle of life. Now, when it comes to us, human beings, we need to come back to the basics. If we can come back to eating clean, real, whole foods versus processed foods, and I always advise my clients right out of the gate when we're first starting our coaching relationship, if you can have that at least 80% of the time, at least 80, that's a good starting point. Now, Mother Nature, they're all at 100% eating a species-appropriate whole foods diet. For humans, we have to take baby steps because then we're like, oh man, we need our processed food. We feel entitled to it and we feel disenfranchised when we don't have it. And that's okay. That's not said with judgment. I say that with a deep caring, actually, and a great respect for our species, but also looking at the blind spots. Okay, so coming back to eating a clean, whole foods-based diet. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, the second thing is looking at foods that are in season. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest with you here. Okay, I have not perfected this. I still find myself at Costco. I will be buying mangoes. It is now the middle of January, or I'll be eating a banana in the middle. Like this, these are things that seasonally, and I live in Utah, these are things that do not make sense seasonally. But this is one of the next forays, so I offer this, not being a sage in it, but also just being a student of this. Eating foods that are seasonal. Okay, so right now, like a winter squash, right, in the middle of January. Warming foods like some animal-based, some meat, soups, things that are appropriate to the season. Okay. Now, next to that, we also have local. So we got the seasonal and we have local. So if we look at what we have available, right? When we have specific choices and we have different geographic locations that this can come from anywhere, across the planet, we have to really understand, first and foremost, if we can come back to where we are and get as close as we can to where we are geographically, that is how our body, that is how our DNA, that is how our microbiome in our gut, the bacteria that is in our gut, it is programmed to eat that kind of food. Now, again, I'm not perfect here, and this is a concept that really hasn't taken place for most, but again, eating that local food is going to be huge. Now, next up is organic. What if we can have foods that are more closely aligned to their original counterpoint? So if I have a food that is very clean, it is organic, that is not sprayed with pesticides, laden with additives, things that are going to be endocrine disruptors, messing up my hormones, that again brings us back to nature. That again brings us back to the basics. Again, that is my point, is if we come back to true north, if we come back to what our bodies are designed to eat specifically, right? Again, the cheetah is designed to have a species appropriate diet. Its microbiome, all of its biology is literally rigged to have that kind of flesh, blood, hide. That's exactly what a species appropriate diet is for cheetah. Now again, for human beings, what is the most nutrient dense foods that we can have on this planet? And that is a human species appropriate diet. Again, we are omnivores. We are literally hardwired to be able to eat animal foods or plant-based foods and everything in between. What my message is that no amount of dogma on any side of that aisle is sufficient to undermine our own biology. So whatever that you find works for you, whatever is aligned with your value system, make sure it is whole foods. Again, coming back to what we are. It's a remembering of what a human being should and is. And if we can always remember that and come back to it, that is our genesis. That is our starting point. That is our ground zero. So thank you, my friends, for being here. If you need help with any of this, please let me know. You can DM me. I'd love to chat with you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your trust. May your body thank you, and it will, when you start to apply some of these very genuine, basic concepts that have unfortunately slipped the zeitgeist in our modern day society and our way of thinking. So let's return back to basics. Again, life is good. This is Griff, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, my friend.